Okay, welcome to the Seo Science Show. I'm your host, Josh Bachynski. This is the first Seo Science Show, the newly named Seo Science Show. The Seo Science Show is a show where we test the actual SEO ranking algorithms, so you don't have to test them. So we have scientific knowledge as to what they are. Hello. On today's show, I'd like to talk about kind of the basics of what SEO Science is, and get a good groundwork for the show and kind of what we're doing there. So I want to alt-tab over here to YouTube to make sure things are going. If you're watching live on YouTube, you can ask me questions on the top right-hand side. If you'd like me to take a look at your URL, if you want me to diagnose any SEO problems, go ahead and ask in the top chat there, in the chat on the right-hand side, if you have any problems. Or if you're watching this later, you can ask questions in the comment stream and I can try and answer there. Or you can email me at joshbachynski@gmail.com. But if you'd like me to diagnose stuff live on the show, please ask your questions on the top right-hand side and put in your URL if you want me to take a look at your URL. And I can run a Screaming Frog report on that, and I can tell a whole bunch of different stuff that's going on from that. And if you can hear me okay, let me know if you can hear me okay. If there's any, I'm doing this new on OBS. Google Hangouts is now dead. Google Hangouts has been the program I've been using to make some kind of science SEO show, some kind of SEO show, and I've been doing that for the last 10 years or so. And so now I'm using OBS to do it. If there's any problems with the playback, the sound, the video, whatever, please let me know. I'm using both Zoom, which is a new meeting app, and I'm using OBS to stream it. So if there's any issues, please let me know. Okay, so as promised, let's get to what we're talking about today. So today I want to talk about SEO Science. What is it? What is it not? How is it studied? Why you should listen to it? There's a lot of SEO rumors going around. There's a lot of opinions going around. And the layperson who comes into any SEO conversation might decide to listen to that conversation. And let me share my screen here. The layperson who comes to the conversation might decide to listen to that conversation and say, I'm talking about this stuff over here. And they might be like, oh, well, everyone speaks so authoritatively on the topic. Everyone seems to think they know what they're talking about. And so I guess what they're talking about here is gospel. I suppose with the confidence of which they speak, that means they have some scientific reasons to believe what it is they're saying. Sadly, the answer is not true. Most people in SEO, sadly, do not have scientific knowledge of what it is they're talking about. And yet they speak authoritatively as if they do. SEO Science is, of course, the study of the ranking factors from a scientific perspective, where we isolate all the variables, where we don't do field tests and we're not making conjectures, we're not making guesses, or at least we're trying to reduce the amount we're making conjectures and guesses. Where we're doing field tests, where we're doing, we're reducing the variables, we're taking links out of the equation, we take traffic out of the equation, we take clicks out of the equation, we take content out of the equation, we take words out of the equation. Any hypothesis in SEO that we've heard about, speed, freshness, anything, we're trying to remove all of those factors out of the equation, or at least make them equal in every testing component, so that there will be no change back and forth, right? If a 5-page SERP all has the same factors on the same server with the same content, exact same kind of scenarios, that's one way of structuring a single variable test or an SVE test. And that's how we reduce the variables out of testing SEO. We are not doing the other kind of SEO tests that other people are doing. And we're not doing them because these ones I'm about to talk about are completely and utterly unreliable. They might be a little bit better than just random from the hip opinion, but they're not much better than random from the hip opinion. And that's correlation studies. Correlation studies are looking at a whole bunch of factors, and they look at the statistics and they say, oh, wow, 70% of pages on page 1 have HTML. Therefore, HTML must be a ranking factor, or something like that. That's called cause correlation fallacy. And you can learn a lot of interesting things to test from correlation studies, because it looks like, why is that stat so high? I should test this. But that's the only valid conclusion you can make from that. You can't jump from 80% of the pages on page 1 have a title tag. Therefore, the title tag must be a ranking factor. You can't go from that to that. That's called cause correlation fallacy. Just because it correlates doesn't mean it's causal. Just because I'm wearing a black t-shirt doesn't mean I was born with a black t-shirt. That's obviously, and you're thinking, duh, of course. Well, sadly, that duh, of course moment doesn't happen enough in SEO for people to realize just because you see something correlating does not mean it's causal. But that doesn't mean it's not causal either. That's the other problem, is that correlation is some evidence that's better than just random hearsay, and it's better than just guessing or using smokestacks, or if I flow this piece of paper on my desk 100 times and it points that way, that means that the letter R is a ranking factor. I mean, there's no correlation between all those things. It's better than that, but it has not excluded the correlations well enough to know exactly what is the ranking factor. There's a whole set of things going on in a correlation study. Variable A to N, and then we get consequence Z, right? So we don't know if it's A causing Z, B causing Z, C causing Z, D causing Z, E causing Z, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. In fact, the variables here are unknown. There's variables here we don't even know what they are. And so correlation is not good enough to infer what causation is. And so that's a good place maybe to get some ideas for testing, but that's all. Another thing people do is just random from the hip. I've been doing SEO for 15 years, and so I think blah, blah, blah. That's complete and utter BS. That's not science. that doesn't help people rank at all. Google is specifically writing algorithms to try and make it more difficult for those people so that they can't rank. So that's not the way you should be doing SEO. That's not who you should be listening to. So all those guys out there, Neil Patel, Brian Dean, Chase Reiner, all those guys out there who just claim to have been doing it for so long, and therefore you should listen to what they're saying. That's not a scientific approach. That's not the proper way to approach a problem like this. That's not the assured way to approach a problem like this. That's not going to be the best way to approach a problem like this. That's like going to a shamanistic healer, no offense to any other culture or whatnot, but speaking in terms of science, that's like going to some kind of healer who's been doing, massage healing for 15 years and saying that they can cure your cancer that way. That would be not a smart thing to do. That would be a very risky thing to do. Why? Because they do not have the evidence to support their claims. That's the reason why. That's the only reason why. If they had evidence to support their claims, then great, okay, then maybe we should take a look into it. And if they're like 90% of the people I massage in this special way had a tumor and then they don't after you test them, okay, that still doesn't prove it, by the way. That's still correlation. Now we have to check to see, okay, what exactly is it about the environment? Is it the special herbs they're burning in the massage room? Is it the massage itself? Is it this person doing the massage? Is it another person doing the massage? You need to do exclusive correlative factors to find out what is the actual factor that's causing the result. That's what science does, and that's what we do on this show, and that's what we do in my mentorship group, in where I share these scientific experiments with my students. And that's how we isolate what the ranking factors are, and that's how we successfully get success every single time. If you go to bit.ly/SEO proof, you'll see our successes there. And they get better over time as well. So that's the first thing you need to think about and consider, is that you come into the SEO industry and you think everyone speaks about it so authoritatively, like they're so confident in what they're saying. That's just because they're just being not very smart. That's because they're being a little arrogant. That's because they don't have the scientific knowledge to back up what they're talking about, and they don't even realize that it's important. And really, they should be embarrassed. They should be embarrassed, and they should not be speaking with such confidence on their blog or in their videos that they make like this, for example. Just because you're ranking number one for SEO help doesn't mean you know a thing about how to rank for SEO help. Not in a scientific sense. It means a number of very lucky accidents has occurred to put them there. Because if they cannot give you the scientific variables of all their testing, and they can't tell you the scientific principles of how they know that they're ranking here or there for those reasons, then they don't have scientific knowledge of it. It was an accident, right? They made some crazy cocktail of a potion, they drank it, and they grew wings. They don't know what was in the cocktail, so they can't tell you if that for sure caused the wings. Probably something in there did it, obviously, but if they can't isolate it, then they don't know. And I know our culture has been eschewing science, sadly, and getting less and less away from science, where they should be going closer and closer to it, because at the end of the day, science controls everything, science runs everything, science knows the secrets, and if you join the club, then you join the club and you know the secrets too. If you don't join the club, then you don't know the secrets. So, I'm always amazed at how strong of invective I need to give for science on every single show. It's a very sad state of our culture where I have to argue for science so hard on the show, and it's only because everyone out there talks like they know what they're talking about with science. When with SEO, when they just don't know what they're talking about, they have a bunch of guesses. Most of which are probably wrong, a couple of which could be right. They don't know because they've never scientifically tested it. So I've talked a little bit about SEO science, what it is not. It is not rumor. It's not hearsay. It's not doing correlation studies. It's isolating the variables in an isolated test environment where we control everything or as close to everything as possible. And then from that perspective, we're able to tell, okay, we think it's A, B, or C causes D. D is a boost, let's say, in ranking. Then we do A, well, didn't get the boost. Then we do B, didn't get the boost. We do C, finally we get the boost. We go, okay, so it wasn't A and B doing it. It was C doing it. C gives this boost. And now we can test exactly how C does it. C1, C2, C3, all the little variables of the way you can do variable C, whatever that is. And then we have scientific knowledge, precise, specific, reliable, trustworthy scientific knowledge that C2 is exactly what causes boost D, and we know exactly how much, we can maybe tell how much it gives boost D, and in what conditions it will give boost D, and what conditions it won't give boost D. And if you don't have that level of knowledge, then you really have no idea what regarding D, whatever that is. It could be links, it could be traffic, it could be on page, all the things that are rumored to give, could be a silo, could be domain age, could be exact match domain, all these things that are rumored to give you a boost that people are just randomly guessing and they really have no idea. And it's really hurtful that they would say that they'd say what a ranking factor is when they really have no idea. It's like someone who has no idea about medicine going onto a medicine show and telling people if they eat rocks it'll cure their cancer. I mean, that really is unethical, and they really should be, the whole industry should blame these people for doing this. And so that's kind of what that's like. And so I also talked a little bit about why you should be listening to SEO Science, because science can prove what it is it's talking about. Nobody else can. So, I mean, that's why you should listen to it. And I think the reason why people don't think along these lines, again, is because everyone in the industry speaks so authoritatively about it. And everyone in the industry thinks that SEO is so simple or easy that it doesn't require scientific study. That is just simply not true. If you've done your homework and looked, and you've been in the business as long as I have, you've seen a lot of people go out of business. A lot of people are no longer in SEO. And it is difficult enough and it's complex enough to definitely be something that you need to study scientifically. Or I'm telling you, you are risking your money, you're risking your revenue if you don't take a scientific approach. Just consider this scenario, if you will. Ask yourself this question. How much does SEO mean to you? If your SEO failed, what would happen tomorrow? You could be an in-house SEO. You could be an SEO with clients. You could be doing SEO for affiliate sites, right? Or some kind of money site. If your SEO failed tomorrow, what would you do? Would you have to get a new job? Would you have to explain to your boss what happened? Would you get embarrassed? Would you lose money? Would you be able to not work from home anymore? Would you have to go get a job at Starbucks or something? You know, how much money is tied into your SEO efforts and endeavors, right? How much revenue are you risking per month to rely on nothing more than what constitutes as nothing but hearsay and rumor? You know, people have $10,000 SEO budgets. People are making hundreds of thousands of dollars online per month or per year, and all that money is risked. It's like going to Vegas and rolling the dice and just seeing what you get, right? When you're listening to hearsay and rumor, all that money is being risked on no scientific principles, no scientific background, no scientific study at all, and it's insane. It's insane that this is what the industry has been thus far. It's insane that non-science is the default position in the industry. It's insane. It's crazy that people have been risking their livelihood, their jobs, their reputation, their budgets, and the livelihood, jobs, and budgets of everybody else who listens to their advice on nothing but their random from the hip guesses. that are completely unverified, that have no verification whatsoever in science. Maybe they're right. Statistically, probably they're wrong. Because if it was that easy to guess, everyone would be a millionaire in SEO, and not everyone in SEO is a millionaire. I assure you. It's the other way around. If you're randomly guessing at something hard, you probably got it wrong, and you probably haven't got it right. It's the other way around. So it's just crazy. It's insane that that's the default position in this industry, and that really gives SEO a bad name. And it kind of deserves the bad name it has right now, because it's nothing but charlatans and snake oil salesmen who are selling people a bill of goods based on absolutely nothing. And you are risking your job, you're risking your company, you're risking the jobs of everyone who works with you, if organic revenue is that important. You're risking your ability to work from home and maybe watch your kids and not have to pay someone for daycare. You're risking everybody else's job and everybody else's money who's listening to your advice if you do not have a scientific evidence to back up every single thing you are saying. So I find it nuts that this is the default status of the industry. I find it nuts that this is where people are when it comes to SEO. But sadly, that's the default stance right now. So it's kind of crazy. I am the one in the industry who is saying, guys, we need science. You need to have proof for everything you're talking about. You don't have to share it. That's another thing I need to talk about is before I get to some more recent discoveries, and speaking about some of the recent discoveries we discovered. So I will leak a little bit of information on this. But this background information is super important. You can't ignore this background information. You have to get your principles set up correctly first, or then you're going to go wrong later on. You can't build your house on sand. You need to build your house on cement. So we need the bedrock of the principles first before we move on to the SEO tactics. For example, another so-called pundit in the industry who claims to do science, but I haven't seen really any science come from them lately, and no good science either, nothing just about questions or surveys, said that reproducibility is the essential thing that makes something scientific. And that's wrong. That's wrong. That is not the essential thing that makes something scientific. Excluding the correlative variables that could have been causal. That's what makes something essentially scientific. Whether I decide to share my results with anybody else notwithstanding. Sharing my results with somebody else doesn't make it scientific. That makes it rumor, right? That's what rumor is. Blah, 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 tongue wagging to somebody else, and then they can go and verify it. Yes, that is an important part of the process of science from an epistemological standpoint, but it's not ontologically, essentially inherently scientific that I have to get someone else to reproduce what I did. That person is confusing the process of science with the essence of science. And that's probably because this person eschews philosophy of science, which I've done at the PhD level. And so I understand these kinds of important concepts that base science in a rigorous place where it actually proves what it intends to prove, and not just yammer off, in a group that, amounts to absolutely nothing. So it's these important scientific concepts that every SEO has to understand. You have to have, if you want to be successful, if you want to be an SEO like the ones in my group or myself who are making, 6 figures a year, in some cases mid 6 figures, you need to have education. Why would it be any other way? People go in debt to $50,000 to $80,000 US for their education to get a job. Do you think you can be an engineer without going to university to become an engineer? No. Do you think you could be a high-level computer programmer to work at a company like Google or Facebook without some kind of degree, in this case, a doctorate degree? No, you can't. They hire nothing but PhDs for the most part. Do you think you can be an architect with an architecture degree? No. Do you think you should be a medical doctor without a medical degree? No. Then why do you think you can do SEO without some kind of rigorous scientific SEO education? And then, so my mentorship group costs $300 a month. I saw a question there. I think somebody asked. That's the basic cost. $300 US a month. That's it. That's a pittance. That's nothing. That is absolutely nothing compared to the level of stuff you'd be paying in a university for like an engineering degree or an architecture degree or any kind of degree, even a degree in the humanities, even a degree in the humanities, right? You'd be paying way more for a degree into that. And the people in my group are making tens of thousands of dollars a month or hundreds of thousands of dollars a year. Some of them, the ones who are really implementing these ideas successfully. Most everyone is succeeding because of the rigorous scientific approach that we give. Now, this is not all completely a sales pitch for my group. I'm just saying, join my group or not, I don't care. I'm pretty much full at this point, so don't too many people try to sign up for my group because I'm going to have to start turning people away. But you need to have some kind of rigorous scientific SEO education, or you're really not going to be able to succeed. You might be able to rank a query in a very low competition niche, and then, I know everything about SEO. No, you don't. Or you might work for a company that has millions of links because they're a big brand name, and there's many of other the links actually matter hardly at all. And there's many other more important factors there that they get by virtue of being a brand name that do matter, which I've measured scientifically. And so I know for a fact which ones matter and which ones don't, and to what degree they do. And so that's the reason why you're ranking, because you work for this big brand. And then you go to SMX and you're like, I know everything about SEO. My brand ranks great. Oh yeah, have you ever tried to rank an affiliate site? Have you ever tried to rank for Buy HGH or Herbal Viagra or something really sleazy or spammy like that? Or payday loans? Ever tried to rank for those things? No, they wouldn't have the first clue on how to do those things. Ever try to rank a local site? They wouldn't have the first clue how to rank for DUI Los Angeles or something along those lines. Because they don't even have any basis for experience, never mind rigorous, scientifically isolated experience. And that's the most important thing, is the rigorous, scientifically isolated experience. So $300 a month is nothing compared to what you might pay for an education degree. So if you want to join my group, do so quickly. Get a loan from mom, get a job, stop smoking so much, or whatever you need to do to scrape up a mere $300 US a month, which for the first world shouldn't be that much difficult. I know it's difficult for people overseas and whatnot. I fully understand that, and I'm trying to make solutions for that. I want to run a Hindi group. I want to run a Spanish group with prorated for people in those other areas. I just can't find really good program managers to run those for me, because it's going to be a lot of students. It'll be like 1,000 students in one, 1,000 students in the other. If you're interested, if you are fluent in Hindi or Spanish, and or even Portuguese, I could run one for Brazil as well. If you're fluent in those languages and you think you might want to run, be a program manager for my educational programs, contact me and let me know. If you're good in SEO, you understand education well, you can explain things to people, and you're reliable. Otherwise, the price is what it is for the West. And it's really not that much for the West. And so if you can't afford $300 a month, but you want to get into SEO, sorry, too late, too bad. You're SOL. You have missed the boat. SEO, that ship has sailed. Now you need to pay to get the good information. Sorry, that's the way it is. It goes that way for every industry. But in my case, it's not a senseless cash grab. This is my full-time job, and it takes me a lot of money and time to do all this scientific research. And so that's why I charge people for it. That's my job. So, and if you're thinking you can exist on free SEO advice, you can't. Free SEO advice is complete bullshit. It's just not, they have no responsibility for your rankings. I am responsible for my students' rankings, and I will take personal responsibility for their rankings and jump in and fix things and diagnose things, whatnot. Free SEO advice, you have 5 minutes of their attention because they have 1,000 people asking them a question. They give no responsibility for their answer. They don't ask any more detailed diagnostic questions. They don't take a holistic approach. They don't have a scientific basis, the vast majority of them. And even the ones that do, who are busy running their, tools, SEO tools, they don't have enough SEO science behind them. Most of them don't actually try and rank any pages. And even the ones that do, again, they don't have time to really, because people are paying them to do SEO, they don't have time to give you free SEO advice that's worth any good, that's really any good. That's like going to someone on a forum and say, what should I do for my cancer? And they type back, eat lettuce and exercise more. That is exactly the ethics. That is exactly the level of trust. That is exactly the level of expertise that you're getting in those two comparable scenarios. You go into a show and ask for a free SEO advice. Here, there's only so much free SEO advice can give you, right? It's just limited in its nature and time. You need to sign on with someone who can invest the time and has invested the time scientifically to give you the actual facts and relate them to your actual scenario. Every other free SEO advice scenario is not that. And I'm including this show you're listening to right now. If you ask me any free SEO advice, I'll try my best to answer. And at least I'm answering from a place of science, and so I'm not going to steer you wrong. And I usually do like to leak all the negative things, the demoting factors, so people are not hurting themselves. And I could talk about that later. But for the promotion things, I don't know. I need to do an audit. I need to do an audit on your site and see what's going on and what's wrong. So you just need to sign on for an audit, or you need to sign on to the mentorship program, and that's just the way it is. So that includes my show as well. Okay, so let's go on to the questions here. See what we've got so far. So Christopher says, can you break down exactly what happens when you sign up? I'll do that at the end of the show, so remind me to do that at the end of the show. Dejan says, is it good to retest all known ranking factors known from testing after Big G update? It would be okay if you could. That's a lot of factors to test. There's some problems in SEO testing of just leaving tests up there. Google is well aware of that method, and they have directly counter algorithms to counter that. So it's called the Leaderboard Method, for example, where you just leave it up there, and then you just check to see whenever it goes up and down, and you make a wild guess based off of that. That is not sufficiently scientific, sadly. And so it's not so easy to test all 200 factors at once, assuming you even knew what they were to begin with. So yes, it would be good to be able to test factors on a regular basis. And we do test factors on a regular basis, for sure. And I do have certain tests that are canaries in the coal mine. I could tell when this is, okay, they've done this, or okay, they've done that. But it's not so easy to have we don't have a tricorder, an SEO tricorder that can test every single factor at once. Sorry, we just don't. We don't even have good tools that could do proper on-page. The way it really truly works, we don't have tools that can do proper on-page the way it truly works. So we're looking on building those, but it's sadly not so easy. It takes creativity, it takes imagination, and it takes exactitude in testing. And that's sadly a level of skill that not a lot of other people in the industry possess. In fact, I haven't found anyone else who does it, in my opinion. And this is my opinion. I'm allowed to have an opinion. In my opinion, they don't quite do it as well as that. And that's my opinion, and I'm allowed to have it. Yes, He-Man says, you should be testing. You can't speak with confidence without the test results. Yes, I agree. That doesn't mean, of course, that I can share the test results always, but why you not move to Belgrade, Serbia is a question. That's a great city for everything and so much cheaper, 20 times cheaper than Canada, and almost all speak English and tax are 10%. I recognize you, Jeff. That's right. I tried to learn your name so I could pronounce it, but I forgot what it is. Damn it. I'll get it next time. Yeah, I've thought about that. I know a lot of guys in the marketing industry who've moved to the Philippines, for example, because it's so much cheaper. I know a lot of guys who have moved to other countries because it's so much cheaper. I'm tied to my family. My parents they rent a suite from me. I'm in my house right now. My office is my house. And the whole first floor is an apartment, and my parents rent that from me. I'm evil. I make my parents pay for their space. Trust me, their rent barely covers their bills. I assure you. They're old, they're aging. We're giving geriatric care. So sadly, I can't. I have family commitments in Canada. I can't even consider that kind of a move. If I could, I would probably go teach at a university. Is what I would probably do, because I prefer the intellectual environment over there as opposed to here. Chris Palmer asks, how do you feel about the thought of the updates actually changing the code, popping the cork on old tactics? I'm not sure I fully understand what you're asking there, Chris. How do I feel about the thought of the updates actually changing, quote unquote, the code, and then somehow messing with the old tactics? Yeah, I mean, that happens. That happens on a regular basis. Google not only tries to do that while they're improving the quality and relevance of their search results, they also purposely look for what SEOs are doing and then try to make a change. Google is watching me, and recently I made a discovery about something, and I announced it to my group, and then days later it changed. So that could be a coincidence. That might be correlation. But there was some other weird stuff going on and a whole flurry of people signing up, and I talked to some people and they wouldn't respond to me. So I'm kind of like, are you Google just signing up to my group by accident? So I don't know for sure. But yeah, they do. But I mean, Matt Cutts, I've spoken to Matt Cutts personally, directly, when he used to work for Google, and I'm sure their philosophy hasn't changed in that they do specifically have and specifically make changes just to screw up SEOs, just to screw with SEOs, which they do. So I noticed somebody else did show up here, or was showing up here on the show. Whoever joined, if they're still here, if you want to ask a question, go ahead. I heard the Zoom ding. I don't really know how to use Zoom very, very well. So let me go back to here. Okay, so recent discoveries. Let me get to some more recent discoveries here, talk about this. And I will start to turn off this, and I will turn on that so we can talk about this. Okay, so more recent discoveries. John Mueller recently went on and talked about two things. He said that there's no such thing as LSI keywords. So the very reason why he's getting that question is because the science SEO movement is gaining steam. The science SEO movement is now the place to be. The science SEO movement is getting notoriety, and people are having trouble ranking without it. And so we are creating a buzz, and people are moving in that direction for their rankings. So they start to ask John Mueller questions. That's a problem for us, though, because now Google starts to look deeper into our stuff, which is not what we want. The guys who run tools don't care, but they're fools to think that they shouldn't care, because Google can very easily look into your tools, cough, cough, Ted, cough, cough, Kyle, and shut them down if they want. So I would not, especially those of you who are scraping the SERPs or looking into the SERPs. So I would not go telling Google or be making any more public announcements about ranking competitions you might have won and or things you might have done to make Google look dumb. That's not only going to hurt yourself, it's going to hurt everybody else in the industry. That's a very cavalier and, quite frankly, unethical thing to do, in my opinion, which, again, I'm allowed to have an opinion. At least that's my take on it. Anyway, take it or leave it. So somebody asked John Mueller, is LSI keywords a thing? To which he said no. And then they also asked him if word count is important, and then which he said no. And here's the funny thing. He's right. He's correct. Word count doesn't matter. Word count, he's correct that LSI keywords are not a thing. He's right. LSI keywords are not a thing. Google is not doing latent semantic analysis on the search results. I know. I've tested it. They're doing something else. It's kind of like latent semantic analysis, except that on steroids plus guns attached and lasers. So it's not that. It's something else. And it's semantic content vectoring. It's what it seems like it is to me. That seems to be much, much closer. But even that does not fully explain the whole thing. But that's definitely getting you in the right direction of what it is. So no, Google does not use LSI keywords. It is accidental. This is exactly an example of bad science that I was talking about. Someone does a test of LSI keywords. They fire up an LSI keyword tool, and they put those LSI keywords into the page, and then the page goes up, either in the field or in testing. And then, therefore, they conclude, LSI keywords are real, and that's what Google is doing. That was way too big of a conclusion to make. That's not the conclusion you can make. All you know is that in the field, 80 million things happened and a page went up, okay? So ignore the field entirely. You cannot use the field for isolated scientific testing. And even when they were using a more isolated environment, when they put the LSI keywords into the pages and then the pages went up, they then assume that those words are only exclusively LSI keywords, which is not true. They could be fluba-juba keywords. They could be vector keywords. They could be whatever else keywords. They could be TF-IDF keywords, right? They could be any other kind of keywords. Those words themselves, they randomly picked, could just magically have an ability to rank pages. Or where you put them is what magically ranks pages. Or how you put them, or the order you put them can magically rank pages. Or the specific pages you put them on, we're going to get a boost anyway, right? It's nowhere near sure enough for you to take LSI keywords from an LSI keyword tool, put them in there and say, therefore, LSI keywords work. That's just simply bad science. It's not exacting enough. So that's the kind of science that other groups are doing that we pick apart internally and we test individual pieces of it, and then we find out what is actually happening, and it's something closer to semantic content vectoring, I'm happy to tell you. And then we see, now I see what Google is doing. And yes, I can see why LSI keywords sometimes gives you something of a boost, but sometimes it doesn't. Why? Why not? Why is it that everyone who uses the LSI keywords tool doesn't always get a boost? Because it's not LSI keywords. It's something adjacent to, similar to, sometimes sharing LSI keywords, but not latent semantic analysis. So that's not it. And it's just bad science that makes people say it is. Then they throw it into their tools and they try to sell their tools. And at the end of the day, in my opinion, I don't think they care enough about their tools being scientific as opposed to just selling more tools. That's just my opinion. Take it or leave it. And then word count. Again, word count doesn't matter. He's right. Word count doesn't matter. Word count itself is not a ranking factor. I've tested this every which way. Word count itself is not a ranking factor. It's something else that has to do with word count. And in this case, it's something that I will call, that I'll talk about a little bit later, that I'm calling object potency, and again, semantic content vectoring. It's the vectoring that causes the rankings or not, and the object potency that causes the rankings or not, and potency of particular special objects in a particular order, in a descending order of importance. So if you have the proper vectoring, you have the proper weight of certain keywords in there that are in the vector. The vector is just describing a line, like a trend line in a graph. If you're using those statistically coexisting words enough, and you have them in the right spots, and you don't have other words in the wrong spots, then yes, you will have a higher weight, and you will rank better in terms of just that one silo, the on-page silo. That's what I call silos, is just the different silos of what you need to rank. If, for example, if I share my screen, I can show you. Oh, I can't break out of this. Oh no, I don't know how to use Zoom properly. That probably already got messed up, but can you guys see the formula here? I think you can.
No, not yet.
Can you see it now?
No.
Sorry, technical difficulties. Obviously, I don't know. Yeah, it's doing a display capture. You should be able to see this. Anyway, I have a graphic that has a bunch of boxes in it, and those are the ones that are important that you need to know for ranking. That's what I call siloing, not making pages that link up. Those are just internal links, and there's a better way to do it than what people say is siloing. Anyway, in my opinion. Oh yeah, that's what I need to do. And then go. There we go. Okay, so I should be full screen again, I think. Oh yeah, I see it on the screen. There we go. Anywho. Yeah, so no, word count doesn't matter. Sometimes word count will matter, sometimes it won't. And that's the problem, is that these hypotheses that they're starting to test, is word count a ranking factor, is not even a discriminating enough hypothesis. It's not exacting enough of a hypothesis. They haven't been imaginative enough. They haven't been creative enough in forming their hypothesis, or in what the potential evidential fidelity, the evidential response could possibly be. So they throw 5 pages up there, all of different lengths, and one of them ranks over the other one. And they say, look, word count is a factor, or look, word count is not a factor. But they were testing 10 things at once. So that doesn't necessarily mean that word count is or is not a factor. So again, I've done more stringent testing, more exacting testing that proved to have better results both in testing and in the field. It's semantic content vectoring that's a factor. Another thing is a lot of people talk about entities as well. Entities is nothing. Entities is not a ranking factor. Entities are not a scientific determination. Entities are not anything that you need to worry about. I wonder how I hide this. Entities are not anything that you need to worry about. They're not a real thing. Not as far as I can test, and not as far as I can tell. Definitely not in informational search. Maybe there's something in local search, But again, it's an unscientific, unproven concept that has absolutely no scientific proof or reason for believing in it. And so anyone who talks about entities is talking about it in a non-scientific way, in my opinion. But the problem is that when you get into the local space, and I will fully admit when you get into the local space, your ability to do single variable testing is strictly reduced because Google controls more of that environment. It used to be, Jordan Pierce is a very good local SEO, and it used to be that Google had a map maker where you could make a whole fantastic town that doesn't exist, and you could make streets that didn't exist. And he was able to test it in that way. So that's more of a pure scientific variable test, single variable test in that regard. But sadly, you can't do that anymore. So I do agree that Google definitely recognizes nouns. They certainly do that. And they definitely have that capability in the Google Natural Language Processor. That, of course, does not mean that that's being used in ranking in any way. But the bulk of my scientific experiments show that really the whole concept of entities really has nothing to do with anything. It is an idea that people have, kind of like not even as scientific as string theory. String theory has yet to be proven in physics and is pretty much, as far as I understand it, considered to be pseudoscience and considered to be untrue for the most part. As far as I understand it, science has moved past it. And the concept of entities, to use a metaphor in SEO, is not even that close to being scientific, right? Doesn't even have that much math behind it, or that much realism behind it, or that much scientific proof behind it. So I don't like to talk about entities. I really don't think they're a real thing. I really think it's just semantic content vectoring, because all of my tests come back showing, and I'm trying to disprove it, by the way. I'm trying to disprove semantic content vectoring. I'm trying to disprove that hypothesis of mine every single time I do a test along those lines. And it just keeps coming up as, nope, that's what it apparently seems to be. A scientist normally doesn't want to advocate for a particular hypothesis. Usually they want to try and disprove their own hypotheses. And that is not a good stance. It's difficult enough to run a mentorship group on that principle, I assure you, because my students are expecting it to be one way and never change, sadly. Well, they'd like it to be one way and never change. And whereas sometimes I have to drop a bomb on them and go, oops, nope, that's not the way it works. And I try to be good as a teacher and, of course, keep my hypotheses to myself. I'm testing 40 hypotheses at once in a single test. And I'm not going to tell my students all of those because I would just confuse them. Then I'm like, for now, my recommendation is blah. The test suggested blah. And I'm not telling them about the 25 other hypotheses I have going on that I'm also testing until the tests give that enough proof that would be my new recommendation. So entities in that regard, it's more about semantic content vectoring. The next one that also seems to be very controversial with everybody who they just don't understand what I'm talking about because it's not actually that controversial, is the multivariable indexing and sorting. Google does not have one index. They have many indexes. They have n equals indexes. I think they have an infinite number of indexes because they have an infinite number of random sorts they can do in coordination, right? This also adds into something else that we've been testing that no other science group has tested. In fact, all the other scientific groups that I know of, all the public ones anyway, have eschewed this way of testing because it's so difficult to do so, is the QDD filtering, the query deserves diversity filtering, the post-fetch filtering that Google's doing to the ranking results that jostle things around, not only and it jostles things around in a number of levels, and these are the levels that I know about: freshness, geographic, personalization. We all know about those ones. Everyone knows about those ones, but also semantically, it can refresh things around. That's called QDD aspect, which I discovered. Scientifically speaking, I discovered it. Google already discovered it. They made it, right? But I discovered it. Scientifically, no one else has even talked about that, knows what that is, knows how to manipulate it. It could be a huge boost if you do it right. But there's other ones as well. There's, did you know the QDD aspect? And then there's the featured snippet QDD aspect. There's all these kinds of different QDD filtering that they do that testing is just starting to discover and learning how to manipulate. And then, as I mentioned, the last one that I want to talk about today is something called object potency. A lot of people in the industry think keyword density is important or that match counts are important. They're not. I'm going to tell you right now, they're not. Match counts are not important per se. Keyword density is not important per se. The keyword density of your page at the end of the day does not matter at all. At all. That's not how it works. Newsflash, Google's made it way harder than that. Google knows what we talk about. Google knows we've been talking about keyword density forever. Google knows that, and Google has made it way harder than that. And it's not keyword density. It's object potency, and there's certain objects that weigh more than others. There's certain objects that have over-optimization penalties, and there's certain objects that don't have over-optimization penalties, at least so far, and those change over time. Like I mentioned, one recently changed. I found that you could ridiculously spam it, and then just 2 days later, Google made that single specific change and changed nothing else. And I'm like, And that's just when someone joined my group, and I was wondering if they were from Google because they looked fishy. And then they left. So I don't know, maybe they were, maybe they won't. I'm not saying they are. But I'm saying that the fact that Google seems to be looking into my stuff is a pretty good indication that I'm onto something, right? Or the fact that it looks like Google could be. So I'm telling you now, from my scientific testing, I can tell you it's not keyword density. It's not match counts don't matter. And the way that they're currently being measured and talked about, even in the other scientific groups, they're incorrect. Their testing is insufficient in this regard. They tested up to a certain point. They thought good enough and made a tool. Sadly, it's not. I'm sorry to tell you this bad news that I'm sure is going to create more hatred and more talking in their group, of all of which I see, by the way. All my students show me everything. And that's too bad. I hope that they take these suggestions and make themselves better so that the 600 people who rely on them are not getting bamboozled every day. And actually don't have to suffer the soul-crushing defeat of your sites not ranking well enough and having to get a job at Starbucks or something along those lines. I'm trying to, being ethical is difficult. I'm trying to, it's called tough love, I think. I'm trying to help people not have to go through that. Like I told you, I said, what would happen if you tried to rank and it didn't work, and you had to get a job at Starbucks? What would happen to all that money? How happy or sad would you be if you tried it out based on what someone said, and they even said they were doing science, and you believed them, and yet they didn't provide enough sufficient proof. They didn't provide proof on a regular basis. They couldn't explain it in a scientific way on a regular basis, and they did not seem to be consistently testing their own hypotheses. And then, sadly, the field tests didn't bear out always either. And then unsurprisingly, your venture fails in consequence, and then you have to go get a job at Starbucks. That's what I'm trying to avoid, and I work every day to avoid. Does everyone else do that? I don't think they can say that. Okay, so that has been enough of a rant from me. I'm sure it'll make a lot of people really happy, and I'll get a lot of comments and downvotes. But that just tells me that I'm doing my job, because sometimes the truth hurts. And I have the evidence to back it up, and so I sleep perfectly well at night regarding it. Now let's look at the questions to see if we have any more that I can actually answer. One question I said I would deal with at the end of the show. Christopher Resume says, can you break down exactly what happens when you sign up with you? When you sign up with the group, you get access to the course content, and you're told in general which ones to watch and in what order, in a very general way. And you're released to all the scientific experiments, and you can start asking questions and start learning about whatever part is more important to you. And there's a monthly fee to maintain access to the secret information. I continuously do scientific tests, and I will continuously update, change both the results and my recommendations. And right now we have a very good level of success. Don't take my word for it. Don't believe a word I say. Go to bit.ly/SEO proof. That's bit.ly/SEOPROOF. And in there is about 300 examples of my students killing it, my clients killing it, my sites killing it, because, and only because, of the quality of our scientific process. Someone asks, your opinion on redirecting expired drop domains with good backlinks. Here's the problem, is that you never know that their backlinks are good. So that's not, in general, that is not a tactic that I recommend. Our science proves what is fully optimal to do. There is all other kind of tactics which are not optimal, which you can do, like siloing, for example. Yes, you can rank with a silo using a silo method, but my scientific testing proves that you're ranking in spite of your silo method. You're not ranking because of your silo method. You're ranking in spite of your silo method. In my group, we do search engine optimization. What we don't do is SEG or search engine gambling, search engine rolling the dice. If your way you talk about it is it works, like you say, yeah, it works, silos work. You don't want what works. You don't want what works. You want what's optimal. You want what works best. You want what the absolutely optimal, maximally idyllic thing to do for SEO. That's what you want, and that's what your science needs to prove. Anybody who says, yeah, links work, silos work, if they say the word work in SEO, run away screaming, because that's not even the level they're supposed to be thinking about it on. That shows that they're an amateur. That shows they have no experience. That shows that they can't think about it scientifically. So that particular tactic you're talking about, which is redirecting expired drop domains, you never know if the backlinks are actually any good. They could be bad. There is evidence to suggest that it will possibly demote your page. But anyway, it's not our recommended optimized way of building links, because we found through scientific testing much better ones that are much more assured, much less risky, and cost a lot less. And so that's not our recommended way of doing it. Can you rank a site doing that? Yeah, you can. If you can trick Google's algorithm to not notice that the site changed hands, and if you can make sure that there was no bad backlinks. So little pro tip I'll give you is send them to another URL first, like inside the site. Send those links to 301 them to another URL and see if that page goes up or down. And then if it goes up, then keep it. If it stays the same or goes down, then it's useless, and get rid of it. But the problem is you've already bought it at that point. You've already wasted the money. So again, it's not our recommended way of building backlinks. Deirdre asks, "Hi Josh, we have a site with an event portion. Over the years, the event portion of the site had become bigger than the original site. Now it's 85% of the site. The current that site ranks very well at current, but we are looking to separate the event portion onto its own domain. The issue with these event pages are they are very thin, averaging 100 words per page." Jordan says something interesting under that, which I'd like to ask him what he means by that. Doesn't sound good. So here's the issue, is that that's user-generated content. It's funny, I was just talking about that today with one of my students who also has a site that makes user-generated content. And the problem with user-generated content is Google hates it. It's not what Google wants to rank. In general, they have a huge bias against it, kind of a hate-on against it. And so that's the first thing you got to remember. And any site that has user-generated content, you have to be extra squeaky clean in terms of your technical, in terms of the page content. You need to check your crawl anomalies on a regular basis to see whether or not, everyone should be doing this, by the way. You should be checking your crawl anomalies to see if any good pages are in there. If any good pages that you think should be ranking, one of your desired ranking pages, ends up in crawl anomalies, you've got a serious quality problem either on that page in particular or the site in general. You should definitely look to clean that up. And user-generated content type sites, they see that on a very regular basis. So you ask me, should we delete that whole portion? This is the part where the free SEO advice is just not good enough. All I could give you is a from-the-hip guess that is not good enough. And so I'm thinking I'm not even going to try. But if you put my boots to the fire in this free environment, which really you should be asking me to do a more in-depth look, you need to look to see if those event pages are the ones that are ranking and you move them to another site. Yes, they will probably keep ranking if you do the 301 properly. They may not. Changing URLs is always a problem. And it could cause problems for your original site. There is a little bit of domain authority that does get shared across a site, but usually it's over semantic. And so that in that sense, it should be a minimal change. So it is really a 6 in one hand, half dozen question. It's a 6 in one hand, half dozen in the other question that is really not best solved by asking for my 5-second take on a free show. You really should be doing more analysis into that and seeing what's going on. Deirdre continues on. Maybe she gives me some more information. On the domain where the events were shared before, the main domain content was more blog content in so many words. What issues do you think the thin event pages will stand alone in their own domain? And here's another problem, Deirdre, is that thin pages are not a problem. Thin pages are not necessarily a problem. Some pages only need to be 100 words. So the fact that it only has 100 words, or it's thin in that regard, is not necessarily the issue. That's not a scientific diagnosis. It's not a scientific place to proceed from. You need to, are you part of my group? If you are, ask me in the group and then show me the site. I need to do a bit of an audit on it to give you a better answer. You need a teacher who's going to take some responsibility in their answer and look at that. Do not listen to free advice on SEO shows for any SEO question, really. Never mind that one that's so dangerous and so complex and so maybe this, maybe that. She continues on to say, it's not user-generated. It's for business reasons. We have to separate the domains, unfortunately. Well, then you have no choice. Now, at the end of the day, yes, expect a hit because you're changing URLs. And that's what's going to happen. Also, I should add that both the domain exists, but there is a canonical to the blog event site from the event site. So no, you don't want to do that, especially if the main site is selling a service or a product. You have different vectors right there, right? They're in different vectors, and so having that content's not going to help. If your content is not vectorized on one page in particular, semantically speaking, but even on the whole site, then you're not helping yourself rank. And so that is the only concern you really need to care about, other than changing URLs will get Google to reprocess everything. So that's what you need to worry about. Jordan Pierce says, some people in here should be in your mentorship group because they only know how to rank by removing competitors. That doesn't sound good, Jordan. And then he says, last week I had several people try to attack me by removing some GMBs of mine and also attack a few of my sites. They suck at SEO and only know how to remove competitors. Wow, okay. I'm sorry to hear that, Jordan. I mean, negative SEO is terrible in general, and it's not getting any better, that's for sure. Some people definitely do negative SEO. I don't teach negative SEO. We don't really do negative SEO. It's not a good way. I'd rather outcompete them than try to negative SEO them. And I'd love to hear your hypotheses as to how you think that happened, Jordan. Because actually, one of my students' GMBs just got removed, come to think of it. They just fell for their GMB, and I was wondering if there's some foul play there going on. So I'd love to talk to you, brother, about that, because somebody who's in our co-adjacent groups, I think might be targeting people, unless this is just like a massive attack from like a major hacker or something who hacked like 1 million GMBs and just statistically our different groups, because we're in a lot of different groups and we do a lot of SEO, just got hit. But that's disconcerting to hear, my friend. I'm truly sorry to hear that. I'd love to talk to you more about it, not only because my student had a GMB that fell recently, but just because I care about you, don't want to hear it. All right, folks. Well, thanks very much. This has been the SEO Science Show. Tune in next week where we're going to talk more about SEO science. Next week, I want to drill down a little bit more and tell you more about semantic content vectoring. I want to tell you more about the multivariate indexing. I want to tell you more about the robust QDD filtering that Google is doing. And I want to show you some of the latest science on object potency and more about what that is, how you can manipulate it, and any more suggestions that I can give you of what not to do for sure. I appreciate you tuning in. As I say, good luck in the SERPs, and we'll see you next time. See you next week. Bye-bye.